Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the sixth edition of Real Graps for this semester. And this is going to be a little bit more of an accelerated episode. I'm not going to waste my time, or not waste my time, but not spend my time breaking down every little thing that happened in the shows over the past week, because this is a busy week and this is a busy episode. We had NXT, we had Halloween Havoc over the weekend, we had SmackDown, we had Raw, and we have Saturday night's main event coming up this Saturday night on Peacock. So, busy episode, busy episode. A lot of stuff happened, but we're going to dump right into it without any further ado. Starting with NXT, of course, from last Tuesday, the final show leading in to Halloween Havoc. And it opened with some final words and ended with some final fists before Halloween Havoc between the then NXT champion, JC Jane, and the now NXT champion, Tatum Paxley, which we'll get into very soon. But Tatum Paxley, of course, won that battle royal that qualified her for an NXT championship match at Halloween Havoc. Yet another title match. Tatum Paxley had been very unsuccessful in title matches previously, had never won one, and had been in over double-digit amounts across all titles. So it was a big opportunity for her. And of course, she was going to be in the title match at Halloween Havoc because she's the spooky character and it's spooky season. So of course, Tatum Paxley had to get on that card in a big way, in a big match. I did not know that card was going to give her the superpower to finally overcome what she had been lacking for the last few years. But nevertheless, they exchanged final words beforehand. Tatum thought that she thanked the crowd for having her back for all these years, because similar to JC Jane, and it was a nice parallel they drew between the two careers going into the match and setting up for what the match was meant to be. Because before JC Jane beat Stephanie Vucker, it was well known she'd been around NXT for a long time and had not held the championship, had not held a championship, I don't think. But she had this long, drawn-out career before she finally attained some success. And Tatum was the same way. Tatum's been in NXT for, 3 years, 4 years now? And, I mean, she really hasn't had anything. Like I mentioned before, she just hasn't. She's come close to titles. She's competed for titles, but she's never won a title. And she drew that nice parallel between she and JC Jane, because JC Jane came out and said that she has no chance to beat her when that matters most, because other people have obviously pinned her throughout her reign. But when the lights come on for an NXT Women's Championship match, nobody has been able to defeat JC Jane. There's been a few people that have challenged her that you would think maybe had a shot, but they're not able to get the job done. And she was implying that Tatum was going to suffer the same fate going into Halloween Havoc that Saturday. The calling came out. They ran out Fatal Influence. Well, they didn't come out. They were already in the ring. But they ran them off, and that set up a tag team match at the end of the night with Izzy Dame and Tatum Paxley of the calling facing off against JC Jane and the newest member, Fatal Influence, that being Lainey Reed. In that match, JC Jane ended up pinning Tatum, which is usually not a good sign. Going into a big title match, usually if you win the match before, you're not going to win the big match, which was the first sign. However, though, the show did end with Tatum Paxley laying out the entirety of Fatal Influence by herself, being Lainey Reed, Fallon Henley, JC Jane, running them off. She did that all on her own. And that's also not a good sign, because if you usually stand tall at the go-home show before a big match, you're generally the person that's going to lose. That's what the booking history has showed. That's all I'll say. So JC won the match. Tatum ran him off. It was kind of the weird little paradox, like, oh, JC won the match, he's going to lose. Oh, but Tatum ran him off, so now she's going to lose. I didn't know what was going to happen going into it. I gave you all my prediction last week. Turns out I was wrong, which means WWE got me. Pretty sure I was in the minority there, but enough about Halloween Havoc. We'll talk about that event when we get there. Leon Slater had an X Division Championship defense on last Tuesday's show, and it ended in and still. And there was another match to be added for Saturday following that. Leon Slater defeated Stax to retain the X Division Championship. Again, I don't know what's going on with the Heritage Cup unless I missed something from months ago, because they alluded to it being thrown into a river on the broadcast. So I don't know if that's literal and I missed it, or if they're just not referencing it at all and it just got this. I don't know what happened to it. But anyways, Leon Slater did retain, and Javon Evans came in the ring. They, of course, wanted to be on Halloween Havoc, calling out people from the main roster, from NXT, from TNA. And then right before they could spit out AAA, you saw La Parca and Mr. Iguana arrive to a big ovation, by the way. They had a massive applause, and they accepted the Slater and Evans challenge for a tag match at Halloween Havoc, which you already knew going into it was going to be one of the more fun matches of the night. It was going to be, look at the caliber of wrestler in that. You have Mr. Iguana, who's great. You have La Parca, who's really good. You have Leon Slater and Javon Evans, who we already know are both otherworldly, especially for their age. So it was looking real good. It was looking real good for that match in Halloween Havoc, and it did deliver. If I do say so myself, it did deliver on what you kind of thought it would. And here, 2 down, 1 to go. The men's speed tournament finally kicked off last week. It'll culminate tonight. Jasper Troy went against Zachary Wentz and defeated him to advance to the finals. The big dog getting to the finals of the speed tournament. He can just run through people. That's how this goes. This is not a competition for simply smaller, athletic, high-flying wrestlers to put on this 3-minute spectacle. The big dogs get in there too, and they can win matches in dominant and quick fashion, which is exactly what Jasper Troy did to Zach Wentz last week. In the second match, you had more of that high-flying, fast-paced, high-energy action with Axiom and Sean Legacy. They put on a fun little match. Axiom ended up getting the win and advancing to face Jasper Troy in the speed tournament finals, which will happen tonight on NXT, I believe. So that should be a good match. Should be a fun little 3-minute contest. As for who's going to win, I feel like they're going to want Jasper Troy to challenge for a title. I think NXT is going to, NXT wants to have NXT talent prominently featured, especially a guy like Jasper Troy, who won the inaugural season of LFG. And Axiom's already got his own thing going on SmackDown with Fraxium getting targeted from like every angle by the MFTs and targeted by DIY and even trying to challenge and get involved with Ilya Dragunov now, which we'll talk about later. But I don't think Axiom is going to advance to the finals of this tournament. I think he's back to have a few good matches, and that'll be what it is. Jasper Troy probably going to win, probably going to challenge El Grande Americano, the great luchador, one of the greatest of all time, of course, for the Speed Championship. Whenever they do that match, I don't know when they're going to do that match. Probably next week, I would imagine, but we will see. Now, Kalani Jordan. Kalani Jordan's going through a tough time with the NXT women's locker room. So tough, in fact, that she has been officially kicked to the curb because of her siding with TNA in the Survivor Series styles matches. She went to go to the NXT locker room on Tuesday's show, and they kicked her out. They threw her stuff out, and Jordan Grace actually came to stick up for her and offered her help. But of course, Kalani, now holding the TNA Knockouts Championship, one that Jordan Grace held very prominently and broke the barrier with. She brought it to WWE for the very first time. So Kalani Jordan feels that she kind of just took it as jealousy. She thought Jordan Grace was jealous, trying to ride her coattails. Like, I have the championship now. You haven't sniffed the championship since you've come to NXT. So Kalani is kind of developing this ego about her, this arrogance, now that she has a championship again. And it is not boding well for her in the locker room. Like I said, she got kicked out. Jordan Grace, she turned away. So it's just really doing, it appears to be doing more help, more hurt for her character and her connections on the outside than it is helping her. But of course, it's a championship, and that's the goal in wrestling, is to hold championships. So who's really winning? She's probably really winning in the long run here. But Kalani Jordan officially kicked out of the NXT locker room. The Hardys and Dark State was announced to be a Broken Rules match at Halloween Havoc. In a video package, Dark State had their own part where they cut a promo, but the big focus of the package was the Hardy Boys. And this is a gimmick I have to admit I was not familiar with before the episode. I was very interested in what was going on when it happened. I saw some reactions online. I could tell that this was a big deal. But the Hardys visited the Hardy compound. They went to the Lake of Reincarnation. I'm now up to date on what all this stuff means, but they went to the Lake of Reincarnation at the Hardy compound, and it awoke in the Broken Hardys, Broken Matt and Jeff Hardy being Brother Nero again. This was a gimmick that they had back in the day. A lot of people think it was around the time, from what I've seen, where Matt Hardy actually does his very best work, especially character work. And Jeff Hardy kind of played the Brother Nero. I believe that's his middle name or something, if I'm not wrong. I think it's Nero, but Jeff Hardy kind of plays the side character to Matt's Broken Matt, and they run this Broken Hardy's tag team, which is again more of like a spooky thing for Halloween. I'm sure that's why they brought it back. But nonetheless, that match was to be broken rules, and in a broken rules match, there are no rules. So essentially, they're running a no disqualification match for the NXT Tag Team Championships against Dark State, which actually plays heavily into Dark State's favor, which I didn't process at the time because now it was 4-on-2 because Dark State could utilize every single member of the team, and that wasn't a problem. That was perfectly legal under the rules of the match. So it was not spelling it was spelling disaster for the Hardys leading into the matchup. And even before the episode, I thought that Dark State was going to win. Having realized that after they announced the match, I was even more sold that Dark State was going to end up regaining the championships. The biggest focus of the episode, maybe, and I say maybe because I guess nothing is concrete yet, because usually when they are injured, they're not featured on the show, but it was announced before the NXT episode that Sol Ruca, the double champ, the speed champion and the North American champion, came down with the injury bug. She had to announce it on the episode. That's what was announced. She was not cleared to complete and wrestle against Blake Monroe on Saturday, Halloween Havoc, and she was unsure when she would be cleared. So with that being said, she was seconds away from relinquishing her championship, the North American championship. But Zarya stepped up in her place. Blake Monroe felt she should just be handed the championship right there because Sol couldn't compete. She was the number one contender. It was only logical, and Sol actually agreed with her. She actually agreed with her to an extent. But Zarya stepped in, filled in, and offered to defend the championship in Sol's honor against Blake Monroe at Halloween Havoc. So there was a major shakeup late to the Halloween Havoc card. Sol Ruca unable to compete, Zarya filling the spot. And in that sense, Zarya, who has not held a belt yet in NXT since coming over, was the incumbent champion going into that match against Blake Monroe. And she laid her out at the end of the segment, held the belt high. Again, not a good visual going into a big match, but nonetheless, get well soon, Sol Ruca. But the only reason I say maybe about this injury is, again, because Sol Ruca was featured. She was ringside at the match, but the focus was that the focus was all on the North American Championship. And as y'all know, Sol Ruca is also the WWE Women's Speed Champion and has been defending it on NXT programming in the last few months. So if the focus was on her relinquishing the North American Championship, unless she just never got to say in full, what's happening with the Women's Speed Championship? Are they going to visit that going forward? Is Zarya now going to defend that championship going forward? Because if Sol Ruca is not hurt severely, and this was part of a storyline, which I don't get why it would be. I feel like Blake Monroe's title win would be more impactful if she got it off Sol Ruca. And also, why not have Sol Ruca wrestle if she's... I don't know what goes on with injuries anymore in WWE because of what Seth Rollins pulled on us at SummerSlam, but get well soon to Zarya. Or not Zarya, get well soon to Sol Ruca. Because as I said, supposedly hurt, one of the best wrestlers on the NXT brand, one of the most entertaining, one of the fastest rising stars in the WWE right now has been Sol Ruca. So should she be hurt, I pray she gets well soon and comes back better than ever. But if she's not hurt, this story is most definitely leading to a split between Zarya and Sol Ruca. And yeah, it's gonna happen at one point or another. Speaking of another wedge, Josh Briggs, according to a video by NXT Anonymous, who they don't know who that was, Briggs was caught backstage telling Miles Bourne and Tavion Heights, who were kind of in a little argument, that they were actually wasting time trying to be successful and making fans, and let them both know there was only room for one guy at the top. They can't both be vying for the same thing and be boys, which actually was true in a grander sense. It was announced at Halloween Havoc. They revisited this story on Saturday night, which we'll get to eventually. In other news, Ethan Page in a video promo promised to leave El Hijo de Dr. Wagner Jr. for dead in the desert on Saturday, of course, going into their Day of the Dead match. OTM made their return to action against Hank and Tank, the former tag champs, and defeated them, made it pretty quick, I think. It was pretty easy work for them. They're clearly getting a big push in the tag team division, and we'll see where that goes now. the new Evolve Women's Champion, Kendall Gray, who won on Wednesdays, which I haven't been watching, but I'm familiar with Kendall Gray. I watched in the beginning. She defeated Callie Armstrong for the Women's Evolve Championship on Wednesday's show, and she has now been featured, not prominently, but has been featured on NXT recently. And she stepped to Lash Legend in defense of Ren Sinclair in the backstage. So clearly they were going a direction with that where she's going to get a big title defense against Lash, or they're finally going to put a belt on Lash and have it be the Evolve Championship, which is, I guess, better than nothing because Lash Legend has been somebody for a while now that people thought should have a championship belt and never has. So she'll be getting her championship match finally against Kendall Gray for the Evolve Championship. That was announced later on. We'll get there. But this was the beginning of that feud or that little program to get Lash Legend the match, I guess. That happened last Tuesday. And of course, what I said last Tuesday, Ricky Saints, Trick Williams were going to brawl because they were having a contract. They were having a contract signing the following week. And of course, bingo, that was correct. When is it not? Contract signings never go clean. If they do, then it's a misfortune. But Trick Williams said he left Ricky to show that he's the only man that can put NXT on his own back. But at the same time, he said he still doesn't owe NXT anything. And he called Ricky at best to stand in for Trick Williams, saying he was still the man around NXT and it's time that he has his belt back. Ricky didn't take too kind of that. He said that Trick lost the plot, started to think he was bigger than the title, which is true in Trick's character. He feels like with or without a title, he's still the man around this place. And of course, he took a great offense to Trick's. This is about the independent scene, the indies. Trick said he does not look, he said he's not a guy for the indies. He's not want to be going to the independents to wrestle and make a name for himself. He's only here for the big time, which Ricky Saints had a lot of years on the indies before he finally caught his big break. So he took great offense to that. And it was not quite a brawl. They did fight, but it was not an all-out brawl where security was crazy needed. But it ended with Ricky putting Trick through the table for the contract signing to close out the show. And that's where things stood going into last Saturday night, Halloween Havoc, the big event. Now, as for Halloween Havoc, the opening match was that tag match between Javon Evans, Leon Slater, and La Parca and Mr. Iguana. It was a very fun opening match, but ultimately Javon Evans and Leon Slater picked up a win. I don't think that was in doubt. I do have to say that match was not announced last time we spoke. So, for the record, if we're doing predictions going into that matchup, I would have definitely picked Javon Evans and Leon Slater to get themselves a win. So we're going to count that as a right prediction for me because when that match got announced, that was the immediate thought. That's what happened. So we're going to take 1 point on that for a correct prediction. But one gripe I had with the match, and I have to say this, WWE has to stop trying to pull off double springboard cutter spots. It has to stop. It was very reminiscent. There was if y'all don't know what I'm talking about now, there was a spot where Javon Evans and La Parca, I believe it was, both springboarded at the same time. And I'm sure it was supposed to be a very cool cutter spot between the two where Javon hits the big cutter. Or La Parca, I don't know. I don't know who was supposed to hit the move, but the bottom line is they did not get it right, and they both landed hard on their backs. And it was very reminiscent to a spot that happened last year on SmackDown immediately following WrestleMania when Carmelo Hayes faced Cody Rhodes on his first night, and both of them went for a double springboard cutter spot, and that failed because those spots have to be so precise and so perfect that you're not going to hit them that often. You have to be literal perfect time. And those botch spots are very dangerous to the wrestlers. If they land wrong on their neck, if they land on their head, I don't know what can happen, but those spots are not the brightest. They would be really cool if you pull them off correctly, but they're so difficult and so hard that me personally, for the entertainment, I don't think it's worth the risk because those two guys took spills after that. And it's not the first time it's happened. So we got to do away with the double springboard cutter spots that WWE's attempted over these past, year and a half or so. I don't think it's a very smart thing, but a good match nonetheless. It was very fun, and it was a nice way to get the crowd going and opened up the Halloween Havoc show. Obviously, those Mexican wrestlers have themselves some funny gimmicks, especially Iguana. So it's a nice lighthearted way to get the show rolling and get the ball rolling on Halloween Havoc. that followed up with another AAA wrestler and another member of the Mexican promotion, actually a champion in the Mexican promotion, of course, the Latin American champion El Hijo Del Dr. Wagner Jr. challenged Ethan Page in the Day of the Dead match for the North American Championship. And that has been a theme on this show since we came back. And still the greatest North American alive. Ethan Page retained during that Day of the Dead match, his North American Championship. Both men went through hell. It was a very physical, a very demanding, and a very fun match. It was a very good match. I thought they both did a great stop or a great job. And of course, heel tactics always play a role with Ethan Page. A lot of times they go for the mask and they don't win. They don't successfully get it off, but they use it to get the victory in the match. Ethan Page, it actually went a step further. I don't know if it was planned or not. I assume it was. But Ethan Page actually half ripped the mask off of Del Dr. Wagner Jr., El Hijo Del Dr. Wagner Jr. He actually half ripped the mask to the point where I actually thought it was going to come off. And I thought it would have been crazy to demask him right then and there, but that's not what happened. You only saw about the upper level of Dr. Wagner's face, and that set him off. He went on a bit of a rampage after that, but Ethan Page kept going back to the half-rip mask throughout the later stages of the match, and he ultimately targeted it to win the match because he turned the mask around with the rip part, and when Dr. Wagner fixed it again, he threw this powder in his face, threw him off the rope. Not even threw him off the rope. He twisted, grinned him off the rope through a table, and that was that. Ethan Page retained. Very fun match. Definitely lived up to its expectations. There was a lot of stipulation on this card, and I now realize because with the Hardys match and this match, there was 2 no disqualification matches under different names, but of course the same idea. But that match was really fun, and Ethan Page again. Vic Joseph actually dropped it on the broadcast, saying, "Is Ethan Page not only the best champion in NXT right now, but the best champion in WWE at the moment?" And there's a case because Ethan Page is in the ring every week. He's constantly getting put into new feuds. He's constantly defending his championship against everybody from all brands, whether it be Evolve. He's defended against guys from SmackDown, Raw, main roster guys, NXT, defended against TNA talent. He's having himself a really good run with the title. And he's welcomed back some legends as well, like Santino Marella, and defended against him. So Ethan Page, as I've said so many times on here, is doing a great job with the North American Championship. And I have been very pleased with the reign, and I'm happy that it's continuing. How long is it going to continue? I don't know, because I have no idea who's going to dethrone this guy. But as long as he has the title, it's going to be a good reign. It's going to be a good match. We already know that by now. Great work on both ends for both those guys. Now, talked about Kalani earlier, and Lonnie's losing it. Lonnie's losing it essentially because she and Jordan Grace had another unfavorable conversation backstage. Kalani Jordan was in her own locker room, and they had another bad interaction, to put it that way. Kalani, of course, poked fun at Jordan not having been champ since TNA, and she did show again that very arrogant attitude that she has now that she's a champion. And of course, she's fed up with the NXT universe, which essentially disowned her after she went to TNA and sided with them in the War Games matches, the Survivor Series matches. But she poked fun at Jordan, very arrogant. And Jordan actually hinted that she'll be the next challenger for the title and wants to humble her. She's talked about her relationship with Santino because Jordan mentioned how she was looking for her next title challenger. She was going to go to Santino to figure that out. And the segment ended with Jordan slapping Kalani to close it. And Kalani said, "You'll regret that." And of course, that match was announced for tonight's edition of NXT. There's going to be a TNA Knockouts Championship match on NXT tonight between Jordan Grace and Kalani Jordan, 2 very high calibers of NXT talent and wrestlers. So that match should be fun. And whether it ends it's either ending in a no contest or Kalani is going to just win. Whether it's be by cheating, I don't know what it's going to be because Kalani's not actually a heel, but she's kind of leaning more at that side of her character, if that makes any sense. So I don't know how it's going to end, but either way, Kalani's going to end up walking away tonight with the Knockouts Championship still in her possession because I don't think there's any reason to put it back on Jordan Grace. She already did enough work with it. I mentioned this earlier, I believe, But Blake Monroe and Zarya had their North American Championship match following that segment with Kalani and Jordan Grace. And Blake Monroe ended up defeating Zarya and, of course, indirectly Soruka because Zarya was defending in Soruka's honor to win the North American Championship. That was her first championship in WWE, her first crack at gold. She was successful. And now the glamour, Blake Monroe, is your new North American champion. And how did this come about? Of course, there was a cool little moment where Zarya displaced her shoulder and Sol popped it back in by throwing her into the post. It showed that teamwork, that friendship that they have. But Blake inadvertently took out Sol and distracted Zarya into checking on her. Although she kind of looked down. Maybe she did it on purpose. Maybe she didn't. I'm not too sure. But there was an indirect, at least the way it seemed, taking out of Soruka, which distracted Zarya. Blake hit her from behind. Blake blindsided her. She dropped 2 glamour shots on her, one outside the ring, one in the ring, and picked up her first championship in the WWE after doing that. So Blake Monroe, a lot of people thought she'd come in, run through the division, win the NXT Women's Championship right away. That's not the route WWE took. And finally, and I say finally in a light way because she only debuted about 4 months ago, but it feels like an eternity because of the work she did in AEW, that it is finally now Blake Monroe has herself a championship in WWE. And it's not the main one. The main one, of course, is the NXT Women's Championship. But like I mentioned last week, Soruka has done a great job with the North American Championship leading into this pay-per-view. And now Blake Monroe is officially a major player on NXT with this championship. I'm sure she's going to carry it with the same prestige and honor and keep it as valued on the brand as Soruka did. So a good reign for Soruka, made the championship feel very important, and I have high hopes that Blake Monroe, who we know can carry a championship, is going to have herself a very good reign as well with the belt. Moving along with Halloween Havoc, Kendall Gray officially challenged Lash Legend for that Evolve Championship match backstage. Of course, she accepted. That match is going to happen tonight on NXT. Now, I mentioned this already, but Tatum Paxley and JC Jane had their match following that. And Tatum Paxley actually won the match to gain herself the new, she became the new NXT Women's Champion, which I think caught a lot of people off guard. The crowd in house was very excited about it. Me personally, I didn't mention this already before, but Blake Monroe, I did pick to beat Soruka before Soruka was out of the match. When Zarya switched, it didn't change anything. I had Blake Monroe winning. That's a point right there. Where I do not get a point is this match, because last week I believe I said that I thought JC Jane would continue her reign. Tatum Paxley would fall short again. And it was largely due to the fact that Fatal Influence found a new member in Laney Reed. And I thought that switch would make them, it would keep them strong. And I felt JC Jane was going to run the division for a little bit longer. How much longer, I didn't really know, but I felt she was going to hold that for a little bit longer. That wasn't the case. Tatum Paxley ended up defeating her, winning the NXT Women's Championship, much to the delight of the in-house crowd and a lot of the fan base online. A lot of people have wanted her to get this for so long. Now, of course, how did it happen? There was action outside the ring that broke down after Sean Spears put Tatum's leg on the rope and saved her from losing. The ref threw out both the calling and Fatal Influence following that. And they came back. They returned, causing a distraction. There was a bunch of referees outside the ring. The referee in match came out. Fatal Influence's Fallon Henley and Laney Reed jumped on the backs of Nico Vance and Sean Spears. That caused a whole big thing. And then Izzy Dame came into the ring from behind with the championship and seemingly sacrificed herself to a rolling encore from JC Jane. Tatum Paxley took advantage, hit Cemetery Drive or Psycho Trap, whatever it's called. I've seen multiple names for it. She hit it off the distraction. Ref hopped back in the ring, counted the 3, and that was Tatum Paxley's first championship win in WWE. A long 3 or 4 years. Again, I don't remember how long it's exactly been, but it's been a long time coming for her, and she's finally at the top of the division with the NXT Women's Championship. And you have to put your hands together for JC Jane. She exceeded all expectations, not only by beating Stephanie Vaquer back in May for the championship, but she had a long reign, 5-month reign. She had a very good reign. She defended the belt. She was prominent. She was always on the show, never away. She had herself a very good run, and it really elevated her as a player, so much so that people want her now to go to the main roster finally after all her years on NXT and challenge for like a United States championship against Julia or something, because she did elevate herself just immensely with the work she did with the NXT Women's Championship. So all props to her. It was a great run. And towards the end of the show, it's how the show closed. A reporter actually went to Izzy Dame and asked if she was going for Tatum. She interrupted the question. She ducked the question, said, "Don't make this about me. Make it about Tatum. She's the new NXT Women's Champion." But you saw in the ring, she never embraced her. She looked very upset. So it seemed she might have been swinging for Tatum. If she was, she took a long time, and that's why she was unsuccessful. But it's it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic plays out tonight on NXT and moving forward between Izzy Dame and Tatum Paxton, because obviously Izzy Dame is trying to use Tatum for her own benefit, but in that same breath, she helped Tatum win the Battle Royal and helped Tatum win the NXT Championship. So a lot of success she wants on her own is now going to her counterpart, Tatum Paxley. And that obviously is probably not sitting too well with her, but we'll have to see how that plays out. Now, some brotherly love is what I talked about earlier. Miles Bourne and Tavion Heights. They found heat again as they both went into Ava looking for a Josh Briggs match. Miles took credit for the NQCC exit of both men, while Tavion said he's already done more than Miles. There was a bit of tension there, but Ava said, actually, Josh Briggs is right, and I don't want to see any of you fight him. I want to see you fight each other. So that match, Tavion Heights versus Miles Bourne, is going to happen on NXT tonight. Dark State and the Hardys had their Broken Rules match, and Dark State regained the NXT championships by defeating the Broken Hardys. Hardys and ladders. You already know how those matches go. Jeff Hardy cannot avoid the top of a ladder and jumping off it. That's how it goes. Very fun match. Very good show. It was very entertaining. But why is Unk still doing these spots? There was a spot in the match where Jeff Hardy is on the very top of the ladder. He's all the way up there, and he does a swanton through two tables. I think Osiris Griffin moved, and he just crashed on the outside of the ring through the tables fast. A lot of velocity, just banged on the floor. And that's kind of the point where the match, you know, took a turn for the worse for the Hardys. But Jeff Hardy, if I look it up here, actually, Jeff Hardy is 48 years old. So what is Unk doing, still doing these big ass spots? Sorry for that. I'm so sorry. I did not mean to, that slipped. But what is he doing this for? He has no reason to. But it's I don't know. I don't know why he's doing this. But as long as he can do it and as long as he can get away with it, he can keep doing it, because that match was very fun. It was very entertaining. The Doomsday Device off the ladder that they did to Jeff, it was off the ladder through the table. It was a very nice way to end the match. Dark State got the win, and Dark State is again running the NXT Tag Team division. And Javon Evans and Leon Slater potentially have some eyes on the prize, they said after the match, which would be very interesting to see. If you ask me, Javon Evans, Leon Slater for NXT Tag Team Champions, and get them an active reign where they're constantly defending. Those two are phenomenal in tag action together. Put the titles on them. I am 105% on board. Now, as I mentioned before, the Speed Tournament final, Axiom versus Jasper Troy, that'll happen tonight. And Kaiser, I have to say, Kaiser has zero reason to be cutting Spanish promos so well. He did it in AAA. I think there was a video package that they aired on Halloween Havoc. There is zero reason for Ludwig Kaiser to have this much fun and success with this character of El Grande Americano. It's so crazy and it's so out there, but it's I don't know. It's so beyond what he should be doing with that character. It's amazing. And nothing incredibly spectacular, but Ricky Saints retained in the main event. He retained the NXT Championship against Trick. He kicked out of a bookend through the announce table into a trick shot, so they made Ricky Saints look very strong. There was a spear into a tornado DDT that won the match for Ricky Saints. And I just want to quickly mention, bring back the Rochambeau. I like the tornado DDT. It makes sense. You can do it to everybody, but when there's an opponent you're facing that you can hit the Rochambeau on, it looks better. It's a more visually pleasing finisher. So I really think they should bring that back and have him hit that more often, because it's a very nice looking move. I do have to say, I like it as a finisher. And Booker T was very funny at the end. He threw his headset after Trick lost. He was very upset. But that's Halloween Havoc. Overall, very good, very entertaining show. Some unexpected moments like Tatum Paxley winning the championship. It was a crowd pleaser, and I think everybody was very happy with the way the show went down. Now, for a quick ad.
Let's untouchable, unstoppable.
This is WIUR Sports Radio.
Hi, I'm Robbie Basil, president of WIUR Radio, and I hope you're enjoying today's show. Have you ever wanted to call the biggest games, the biggest moments for the biggest names for Iona Athletics? Then the newly founded WIUR Sports Radio is the place to be. Launched in January of 2025, our goal is to try and get broadcasters here at Iona an opportunity to learn, succeed, and get a chance to be on air. From getting to call the big moments at the hack,
Dinkins trying to go to the rack. Denied. Yafet Mundi.
to seeing the crack of the bat at City Park.
The line drive into left field, around third, and it kicks away. The Gales are going to win it in 10.
We make those moments happen on our brand new WIUR Sports Radio platform on Mixer. If you're interested, feel free to reach out to me via email or to the rest of my e-board to join the club. We are WIUR Sports Radio, the new home of Iona Athletics. Now, back to the show on WIUR, Iona University Radio.
You heard it there first. If you want to get involved here on campus, broadcasting games, there is a new branch of this department, the new branch of this club. You can get to do that. So if you're interested, reach out to the president, Robbie Beza, reach out to any of the e-board members here, and get yourself involved. Get yourself involved as much as you can. It'd be greatly appreciated, of course. Now, back to the show. Main roster, and we're running lower on time here. We only got about 20 minutes left. So we're going to breeze through this as quickly as we can. And for some reason, I don't know where my Monday Night Raw went. It's not here. Very odd. Very odd. I don't know where my Monday Night Raw is, so we might not get to dive in too much with that. But nonetheless, SmackDown. It was a chaotic open and it was a chaotic close. Jimmy came to SmackDown looking for Nick Aldis. Of course, he's had himself a rough week. Cody ran into him, asked him about Jay, told him to focus. Drew interrupted Cody out in the ring. He's been screwed. We've heard that story before. Cody challenged Drew again on the spot after he denied Jacob Fatu involvement. Cody seems very upset and very adamant about that. But nonetheless, Cody seems a little adamant about that, and he's trying to put the blame on a lot of other people. And it might be that Cody Rhodes himself, for whatever reason, did this heinous attack on Jacob Fatu. Not to dive into the theories too much, but it is a possibility. Jimmy Uso, before that fight could start, snuck Drew and led to a brawl that continued into the show, into the backstage area. And Jimmy was completely sold. He knew in his mind that Drew was the one that attacked Jacob. Of course it was Drew. Why wouldn't it be? And he got a no DQ match against Drew that was to happen tonight. It happened on Friday night. They had a no disqualification match. And in that match, Drew ended up defeating Jimmy. It was a hard-fought fight. I wouldn't call it a match. It was more of a fight. And he was about to put Jimmy out for good, something that's happened to Jimmy before. Solo Sikoa did it way back when, put Jimmy's neck into a chair and hit him and laid him out for months. He was gone for a long time after WrestleMania last year. Drew went to do that again, but Cody came to Jimmy's aid, but Cody got laid out to close the show, which thankfully, for a prediction I might have, Cody is not standing tall in the go home show. What am I saying? My mind is in a different place right now. Drew McIntyre, which is something a lot of people have wanted for a long time now. Drew McIntyre to win the WWE Championship or the World Heavyweight Championship, just a championship in general for a wrestler with his caliber of wrestling and his caliber of character work. So Drew McIntyre for champion. I will stand on that going into this weekend as well, which we'll get to eventually. But as for Solo Sikoa and his MFTs, they distracted the referee to take advantage and defeated Shinsuke Nakamura and Rey Fenix in a tag match that they had. It was another good match, but they couldn't win without cheating, of course. That's how it goes with them. Chelsea Green backstage has been trying to recruit somebody to her secret service recently. Everybody under the sun she's trying to recruit. But this week it was Julia. She was kinda throwing shots at Kiana James. Kiana James threw shots back. Julia declined the offer. That didn't happen. So Chelsea Green is still in the midst of a whole lot of nothing going on her with her group. She can't find a third member to replace the injured Piper Niven. Now, the Storm, Jade Cargill. The Storm completely snapped on Friday Night SmackDown. She is now a heel. Tiffany Stratton had her match against Kiana James, in which she won. But of course, she was attacked by Julia following the match. Jade Cargill actually came down to aid Tiffany and ran off Kiana James and Julia, stood tall with Tiffany, but then right after attacked Tiffany herself. And it was a vicious attack. She obliterated her and she targeted the knee and hurt the knee of Tiffany Stratton, which is probably going to play a factor come this weekend. There was a title match announced after. Jade Cargill will be taking on Tiffany Stratton again, this time again for the WWE Women's Championship at Saturday night's main event. And Jade Cargill said that this was power versus patience. She said power was rewarded, not patience. She's been patient long enough and it gets her nowhere. So now she has to show her power. She has to go out and attack Tiffany Stratton and she has to take what's hers. She said it's not rewarded to be patient. It's rewarded to be powerful and to make things happen. So that's why she attacked Tiffany Stratton. Jade Cargill is now a heel, which is something that a lot of people have said she should be for a long time, but it is now official. Jade Cargill is a heel, and that women's championship match will happen at Saturday night's main event. Ilya Dragunov officially kicked off his reign as the United States champion this Friday in a backstage segment with Sami Zayn, where he and Sami Zayn kind of gave each other the rub. Sami Zayn approved, passed on the open challenge to Ilya Dragunov. And Ilya went out there right away, cut a nice promo about his hardships getting back from injury, which was a long time. He was out for over a year, and went right back in to accepting the open challenge and offering it out to the rest of the roster. And the first person to accept it on his title reign was Aleister Black. He answered the first edition of Ilya's open challenge. They both had themselves a great match. It was lovely. Two of my favorite wrestlers in the company right now are Aleister Black and Ilya Dragunov, so it was a treat to get to watch them wrestle one another. And Ilya took advantage of the Damian Priest aura because Damian Priest came out to distract Aleister Black. The aura just took over the room. It took over the arena, and Aleister Black couldn't handle it. Ilya took advantage, retained the championship with a Torpedo Moscow, and Damian Priest attacked Aleister Black until Zelina targeted his injured eye because, of course, the fireball that got him. And it allowed him to escape any further punishment on the night. Carmelo Hayes, what's going on with him and The Miz? He said he got even with The Miz, and he's willing to let it slide from here on out before Kid Wilson interrupted him, the performative male final boss in the WWE. And, of course, they're going to get into a match with one another because Kid Wilson can't keep his nose out of other people's business. And Carmelo Hayes will win that match, no doubt in my mind, unless The Miz has anything to say about it. But as of right now, Carmelo Hayes versus Kid Wilson will happen this Friday, and Carmelo Hayes is willing to leave whatever happened with The Miz in the past and focus on himself. Maybe a more face Carmelo Hayes coming soon. I don't know. Will it be full-blown or will it be for the small program? I don't really know, but we'll see. I alluded to Fraxium's troubles earlier. Fraxium ran into Ilya for the open challenge. One of them might end up taking it at some point soon, which they're both phenomenal. They'll have a great match. They called DIY scared. They had a little run-in with them, and then they were threatened by Tama Tonga non-verbally because Tama Tonga doesn't really say much. He just kind of mean mugs them and looks at them, gives them the whatever it is. Tama Tonga is lurking. He's back to lurking. And he has a nice new finisher, by the way. It's very reminiscent of the hidden blade that Will Ospreay from AEW uses. It's a very nice move. It looks actually damaging. So I am a fan of the reinventions that Tama Tonga has made. And the tag champs, Bayley and Lyra, were to get their tag team championship match against Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss. Bayley issued a challenge on social media. The champions accepted it on Friday night for the coming Monday Night Raw. And Alexa Bliss also picked up herself a match against Nia Jax this coming SmackDown in a backstage interaction that they had. Now, for some reason, and I don't know why, the show, my computer is not showing me Monday Night Raw, so I have to bust out the phone, if y'all don't mind, for a minute. Monday Night Raw. I have to start by saying, what are we doing here? Is it Jey Uso or no Jey? Jey or no Jey? Which one are we going with? Because Jey Uso started the show. He came out, did the big entrance. The crowd was very into it the entire time. Everybody eating in the audience. He got an encore for the entrance, the encore. You got the encore for the entrance again, of course. But there's been this thing going around when Jey Uso won the Battle Royal last week to challenge for the belt. The internet hates Jey Uso. The internet hates him. They despise him. For whatever reason, they hate Jey Uso. And it shows more the top 3 most disliked videos on YouTube for WWE. I'm not sure if it's of all time. I don't think it's of all time. That'd be a little crazy. But at least for this year, maybe of all time. I don't really know. But the top 3 most disliked videos on YouTube are Jey Uso. I think it's Jey Uso winning the championship at WrestleMania. It's Jey Uso beating Austin Theory back in like March in like 16 seconds. And now Jey Uso winning the Battle Royal last week. There's this vendetta against Jey Uso where if you look online, they despise him. And if you look in the arena, they love him. And they react greatly to everything that he does. So which one will it be? Is it Jey Uso or to Jey or not to Jey? I have no idea. We'll see going forward. But I don't think the WWE is particularly concerned, I guess, with the social media numbers that are going on with Jey Uso because they continue to push him for world championships. And not to mention, I think that his current character actually would work pretty well with a world championship, a lot better than the previous one did, because there's depth to it. There's levels to it. He's leaning more into that vicious side, that more serious side, that more heel side of Jey Uso that he had as a member of the Bloodline. So which one will it be? I don't know. But if Jey Uso won the world championship in this character, it's a lot more intriguing than when he had won it back at WrestleMania in his big face character, which, by the way, I wasn't actually that opposed to that reign. I thought it was good for what it was worth. It was actually a solid reign that he had with the championship. But nonetheless, he and CM Punk exchanged some words before the battle. Jey Uso made it known he doesn't care what anybody says about him at this point. He just wants one thing, and that's the World Heavyweight Championship. There was a funny moment where Punk ran back, called to personality, got his own little encore of his entrance just to throw a shot at Jey Uso. And Punk let him know it's no secret that they're friends. He's proud of Jey for listening to himself and not listening to the outside noise, not listening to Jimmy, not listening to Roman Reigns, but listening to his own heart and his own wants. But he doesn't know how far Jey Uso is willing to take it. How deep are you willing to go in the bag to get back what you think is yours, the World Heavyweight Championship? Because CM Punk, we know, will do anything to get that championship back at this point. He returned to the WWE not looking for a championship, but now it's all he wants. He wants that belt. And he's willing to go to depths that we've seen decades past. He's willing to do whatever it takes to get those gold. He's not sure Jey Uso will do the same. Jey actually told Punk to screw himself for trying to paint him as the bad guy in the situation with Jimmy in the Battle Royal, throwing Jimmy out. It was every man for himself. And Jey promised to show Punk who the best in the world is, which I think we can all agree. In terms of technical wrestling, Jey Uso is not the best in the world. But if you're holding the world championship, you can call yourself that. So if Jey Uso wins, he can kind of call himself the best in the world, as weirdly as it sounds. So we'll see what happens in that match on Saturday night. Now, Dominic Mysterio, it's known. I don't know why this is even a debate. Dominic Mysterio, he's never cheated before. He said it last night, and I tend to agree with him. Dominic does not cheat. He never uses any underhanded tactics to win matches. He's never bent the rules. They don't call him out for cheating. So Dominic, there's like this thing going around that even Raquel said it last night. She accused him of cheating. It doesn't happen. Dom wasn't very happy with the number one contenders match that was going on. And of course, like I said, Raquel accused him of cheating to beat both Penta and Rusev, and that didn't happen. So he just rightfully denied the accusations. Finn Balor, JD were irate that they lost their tag titles, and they blamed Dom, obviously, for getting them into the match, and they told him he would be on his own. And then Dom hopped on the phone after and said, I'm going to need your help. And who could he possibly be talking to? It was very interesting because you don't really know who Dom has on the phone, but of course you know who Dom has on the phone. Allegedly, of course, because Penta and Rusev had their number one contenders match, and it ended in no contest because Los Americanos, that being Bravo Rayo and El Grande Americano, jumped them. Rusev and Penta worked to run them off, and they faced off after. Dom, of course, he was unjustly accused of, making this attack, of orchestrating it, so to speak, by Adam Pearce, who's very anti-Dom. He was accused of making this run-in, which it was because he was just having a conversation with Los Americanos backstage. That doesn't mean he made the run-in happen. That's just jumping to conclusions and assuming. The saying about assuming with you and with me. But nonetheless, Adam Pearce booked a triple threat match for Saturday night's main event, which appears to be the last match booked for the pay-per-view or for the PLE on Saturday. It'll be a 4-match card, which I'm actually not opposed to. I like the idea because all these matches are good and all these matches need to get their due diligence and get their time. There's been matches on Saturday night's main event past where it's felt rushed, and I think it's because it's 2 hours for the 5-match format, the big 5 matches. So having it be 4, I think will let all these matches play through in the way that they need to, and I think that this could be the most pivotal and important Saturday night's main event to date, which we'll get to soon. LA Knight, he wasn't deterred after losing the Battle Royal, and he still has eyes on the World Heavyweight Championship. He made that known in a backstage interview and found himself in some trouble later as Braun Breaker. The vision last week I said went half blind, but this year it became a little more clear. Braun Breaker didn't really still understand why he and Bronson weren't in the Battle Royal, and Paul Heyman again reassured them, said we can't piss off Adam Pearce anymore. He could suspend us without pay indefinitely. We have to keep him happy. But they did go to Adam Pearce and get Braun Breaker a match against the previously mentioned LA Knight. And in that match, Braun Breaker picked up the win, again, getting himself closer to maybe that world championship that he wants. But side note, the spear is back. Braun Breaker had a couple scares with the spear recently where it really didn't look all that good. I think the day he turned on Seth Rollins, he gave one out running down the ramp where it just didn't look impactful and it felt like it was falling off. But the spear he gave LA Knight in the match was beautiful. It was smooth. It was vicious. It was right back to that Braun Breaker spear of old. So I was very happy about that. The spear is back. And if the spear is back, that means Braun Breaker is back. He will be world champion at some point. They celebrated Asuka's decade with WWE in a video package, and she's had herself a very long and illustrious career. So, of course, she deserves that recognition. Sheamus returned last week. I called for it. I got it. And Sheamus wants Judgment Day. Pearce informed JD and Finn that one of them would have to face Sheamus after illegally eliminating him in the Battle Royal last week. And JD actually stepped up to the challenge and said, I'll take him on. And after I beat him, you'll have no choice but to give us our tag team championship rematch. And Shady actually defeated Sheamus. He picked up his biggest singles win of his career. It was a good night overall for the Judgment Day, I must say, because JD, with the help of Finn, using a shillelagh, had an avalanche Spanish fly. It was beautiful. And he picked up the biggest win of his career and potentially gave himself a little momentum going to talk to Adam Pearce about a potential tag team championship rematch. As for the women's side of the Judgment Day, Roxanne Perez wrestled herself another match, one of the most active and one of the best superstars, in my opinion, in WWE, one of my favorites. She picked up a big win against the Hall of Famer Nikki Bella. Stephanie Vaquer came out and went face-to-face with Raquel Rodriguez, and that will be a tag champ. There will be a tag match happening on Raw next week between those 4. So big night for the Judgment Day. And Raquel Rodriguez has made significant strides and improvements with her character in recent times. So I think that she's more than deserving of a chance or a crack at a world championship at this point because she's kind of found herself in this character. We're running low on time here, so I got to breeze through. Kabuki Warriors were upset with Lyra. Lyra said, I didn't even make it. And it kind of seemed like Lyra and Bayley were getting back on the same page. They even hit a handshake that looked like it was on the spot. So they might have had a shot going into the main event that night to win the championships. Jimmy and Jay, what's going on with them? Jimmy, of course, was irate. Jay said he went for a night. Jimmy didn't buy it. He said that he felt Jay was scared to run one-on-one. But then backstage later on, they made up. Jay said Jimmy was right, but also said it was every man for themselves, defended himself. Jimmy forgave him. They're all on good terms again. Maxine Dupree is getting a title match whenever she wants it, said Adam Pearce. Whenever she's ready for it, Maxine will get her fair crack at Becky Lynch for the championship. AJ Lee hasn't been around, but AJ Lee has. Dragon Lee and AJ Styles, of course. They're going to defend the championships against Judgment Day next week on Raw, and their first official title defense. And the main event, Flair and Bliss retained in an awesome match against Lyra and Bailey. It was a really fun main event. It's nice to see the women's tag championships get that spotlight again, because they have been a division that's been lacking. So to get them a main event spot and have the match run cleanly was a big win, in my opinion. They did a phenomenal job. It was one of the best main events I've seen all year. Lyra ended up preventing Bailey from tapping to the figure 8, and a double natural selection by Alexa Bliss. And Alexa Bliss and Charlotte ended up winning the match. The Kabuki Warriors came in, made their statement, ran everybody off to close the show. So it was a good episode of Monday Night Raw, good week in WWE overall. And as my time is now up, I want to quickly predict Saturday night's main event. You have Jey Uso and CM Punk for the World Heavyweight Championship. I want to go on record. I think CM Punk picks up the win and wins himself another World Championship on Saturday. Dominic faces Penta and Rusev in a triple threat. And for that reason, I feel Dominic is going to find himself a way to win that match and retain the championship. Jade and Tiffany, I think Tiffany, who's now the third longest reigning champion in WWE women's history, she's going to lose. Jade's going to pick up her first World Championship. And Cody versus Drew, let's go out on a limb. Cody Rhodes is going to lose the championship. They wanted to do it already. They're going to do it now. Drew McIntyre will win his long-awaited WWE championship at Saturday night's main event on Saturday. Watch NXT tonight. Watch me at 5 o'clock. Thank you very much, and have a lovely day.